Discover the advantage of unlimited access to all the stories and resources from IBJ and inside Indiana business. From insights to inspiration, business leaders rely on the IBJ for all things Indiana business. Start your $1 a week trial now at ibj.com/trial offer.
Off the Record with the Indiana 250 is presented by Prolific. When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
The goal for retirement for the average working person isn't to have a lot of money. That shouldn't be your goal. The goal is to not need a lot of money. And I know that's just like a quirky turn of phrase, but it's a lot more than that. Two school teachers who are married can retire easier than partners at law firms every day in this country because they don't need a lot of money.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I am glad to be joined by Peter Dunn, better known by many as Pete the Planner, one of the foremost voices on personal finance in America. Pete is an Indy native who had his stockbroker's license by the time he graduated from Hanover College in 2000. After working for MetLife Securities and Allstate Financial Services for a short time earlier in his career, Pete struck out on his own and created Pete the Planner persona, which blends Pete's financial acumen with a touch of comedy to deliver relatable money advice on radio and TV and in books and in podcasts and probably even beyond that. I don't know about yet. But Pete's column, we're lucky that Pete's column appears in the Indianapolis Business Journal and has for years in the USA Today. And his podcast is also on the IBJ platform, which we're very proud of and excited to have. And he's got a nationally syndicated radio show that's heard across the country. He's a regular contributor to Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick, of course. And he's a sought-after public speaker and author of 11 books, including 60 Days to Change, a daily how-to guide with actionable tips for improving your financial life. But he's more than just a media personality. He's also CEO of a burgeoning fintech startup called Your Moneyline, which companies hire to deliver free financial advice to their employees. Your Moneyline works with over 300 businesses, you may tell me it's more than that now, whose employees get access to the company's educational materials and financial coaches. Your Moneyline began taking on investors in 2022, and 2 years later, secured a $4.5 million venture funding, which it's used to accelerate development of a tool powered by artificial intelligence that promises to offer highly customized financial advice, which we'll get into, I know. And early this year, Your Moneyline was named to IBJ's Fast 25, a group of companies recognized for their rapid revenue growth. Pete, I'm excited to have you on Off the Record podcast and looking forward to our conversation.
I've been looking so forward to this. You and I get to talk every once in a while, but to sit down dedicated for 40 minutes or so and chat is... I'm digging it. I'm
looking forward to it. So, of course, Pete the Planner doesn't really require much of an introduction for our audience because you're with us often. But I want to start, which I always do with my guests on Off the Record, about growing up in Indy. What was life like? Where did you go to high school? Give us a kind of the early Pete the Planner days growing up here.
So the Dunn family was prolific in Speedway, Indiana in the 1970s. They one of my uncles was Marion County Athlete of the Year at Speedway High School. All my uncles went on to play college sports, and so the Dunn family then found its way into Pike Township when I was a kid, and so I went to Pike High School, proud Pike alum, alongside other 250 honoree Chris Gull, one of my best friends. And so it was great. We had a family business growing up. Paulie Smith Plumbing and Heating on the west side of Indy was our family business.
Okay,
it's my grandpa. And I cut my teeth in the warehouse there, just learning the quality of quality work. And needless to say, like any teenager, wasn't very good at that for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, talk about the first time you remember being interested in the concept of money or investing. When did it hit you that this is really interesting and this is something I want to learn more about? When did that begin to happen?
Guyan Creek Middle School, Miss Burke's 6th grade math class.
Okay.
We did a stock market project. And as you know, and many of your listeners know, it was in the paper back then. So it was in the back of the paper. You saw all the ticker symbols and the stock quotes and whatnot. I picked a stock. I picked Philip Morris, as any good, industrious 11-year-old would pick, tobacco stocks. And my best friend at the time's dad was a stockbroker, and I talked him into buying me 1 share of Philip Morris. So I owned tobacco stocks when I was 11, and he even got a stock certificate printed for me, Nate, 1 share.
Is that right?
And I wish I could find it. Oh, I wish I could find it.
You've looked for it, I'm sure.
Oh, I've looked everywhere. And by the time I graduated from high school, it had tripled in value. And I just sort of, there was something about it. I'll also say the other side of that, and that really speaks to more of what we do today, in math class, I love story problems so much. And I think every person's financial life is a story problem. And still to this day, like if I see something that I can work into a story problem, I'm in, and it's like MacGyver, when it was on, it's like, that's just a story problem. And so that's when I knew early. And I kept investing through high school and day traded through college. So I've always kind of been pointed that way.
I'm going to have to come back to that day trading through college, because that kind of goes, it's almost a little antithetical. What's the right word? How do you say that? Antithetical?
Antithetical.
To, I know what a lot of your advice has to be to a lot of your current day, folks that seek your advice through your company and so forth. But that's fun and interesting. So, did you happen to have a family member at all that kind of gave you some early insights to investing, or was this all on your own? This all came to you on your own?
It was a kismet, right? It was this thing of like, it was a school project. I was not the best student in the world. I was in high-level classes, but my effort really didn't match the expectations of those around me, being my teachers and parents. But it was like one of those things. It was a contest. It was just a contest. And I was an athlete, and my family was athletes. And so I just saw it for the first time in school as an academic thing that was actually a competition, just like a basketball game or a football game. And it just sort of tricked me into liking it. It's strange looking back, right? Because, every 11-year-old wants to be a football player or basketball player or whatever. But I kind of knew at that point, I was like, I want to do something. I want to do something with this.
Yeah. So you went to Hanover, and as I mentioned in the intro, you actually got your stockbroker's license like before you graduated from Hanover. Is that right?
Yeah. I went there to play football, as you can tell by my build.
Yeah, that's the first thing I noticed when you walked in the studio.
I get it a lot. And after playing scout team fullback for 5 weeks, my freshman year, I broke my arm, which took me to, maybe not.
Yeah.
Let's not do this.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that, but I started day trading there, and Hanover's great. It's like a small high school in Indiana now. My Pike High School was 1,800 students when I was there. Hanover's 1,000. And so it was great. I got to know everyone on campus.
And so at what point did you get your license then?
Got my license my senior year, right before I graduated. I accepted a job at MetLife Securities, but my 2 internships in college, one was at Scottrade, the former Scottsdale Securities now, where Nate, people would just call, and my job was to give them stock quotes over the phone all day long, 40 hours a week. It was wild. Look, some of the things I'm going to share with you today, the statute of limitations have sort of run out, so I can get away with this. The first time I remember seeing $1 million was at Scottrade Securities. Between my sophomore and junior year. A check arrived that we had to send out to a client that made a transaction. And I went to the copy machine and I simply copied the pay area that just said $1 million on it. I didn't put their name or account number or anything like that. I just thought, and I kept that piece of paper, and I was like, someday.
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking to people about millions of dollars. But I was 20, you know, so did that. Then I went to classic college internship at Northwestern Mutual selling life insurance. Who doesn't want to buy life insurance from a 21-year-old?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you know how that works. You know, you learn what you like, you learn what you don't like. Had some success there. Oddly, it was one of the college interns of the year for Northwestern Mutual. I liked having my picture in USA Today for that. So it's like everything sort of fits together in this super weird way.
Yeah.
You're
So I also love investing, and your story of, you know, having a class where you got to pick stocks and so forth is very similar to my own story. So I had an economics class. It must have been my sophomore, junior year in high school, where we had a competition, and it really spiked my interest as well. So the fun part of this is I had a stepmother who was a stockbroker, and I ended up picking two stocks, and this will make you laugh what the two stocks were, and deciding to invest, you know, at that time, you know, a couple $100 in each one. So I bought Pan Am,
yeah, of course,
and
Iconic.
I bought something called Jolt Cola, and Jolt Cola is the more interesting. I don't know if you remember Jolt Cola,
of course.
Double the caffeine, or maybe triple, quadruple the caffeine and sugar and all this sort of kind of the first energy drink way back when. This is like late 80s. Jolt Cola was bought by Clearly Canadian, and Clearly Canadian was the first like bottled water and flavored water. So my couple $100 investment turned into a few $1,000s, which, you know, as a freshman in college was like all the money in the world. Yeah. But that got me hooked. So your story, you know, resonates with me as well.
Yeah, my day trading in college, I day traded two stocks over. I mean, I had to have been on like the SEC's radar for just the amount of in and out I was. Fifth Third Bank, I just started noticing this pattern and just traded all day long. And Chesapeake Energy.
Oh, I remember that company.
Just like all day long. And whether I went to class or not, I think we'll just leave to history, you know? And it was great. And I'll also say, like, notable Hanover alum, Elaine Beadle.
Yeah.
You know, she would come to campus when I was a student there. And, like, you know, she's a financial planning icon, truly, in the world of financial planning. And she was an inspiration to me then, too. And I just remember getting out in the business world and, you know, getting out in the investment world, and I came across a new prospect for me, and they were like, "Oh, I actually work with Elaine Beadle," and I was like, "Okay, thank you, goodbye." And I was like, ran. I was like, "Oh no, I can't compete with that."
Elaine. That's funny. So you, of course, use comedy, and you've dabbled, and maybe more than dabbled, as a stand-up comedian, and done. Talk a little bit about your engagement on that front, and whether you thought that might one day be, you know, early in your life, that might have been a career track. Talk a little bit about how you've been involved on that front.
Like many budding comedians, it almost all ended when I was the high school baseball announcer who almost got suspended for...
You were the Bob Uecker?
For saying inappropriate things over the PA system. But fortunately, the principals would often laugh, then discipline me, which is a pretty good combo.
Yeah.
Then did improv comedy in college at Hanover, and then got out and started doing comedy sports here in town. Would occasionally get over to Crackers to do like an open mic night. Did that for a while. Talk about a great local publication, Nuvo, back in the day.
Sure.
It was a big Peter Dunn comedian fan. But then I stopped. Like 2004, I got a lot of recognition in Nuvo. My career was going fine, but Nate, I was like, I'm not getting any career recognition. I'm getting comedy recognition, so I quit. And that's actually when I created Pete the Planner. I was like, why am I being this like straight-laced person 60 hours a week trying to build a business and then having fun for 4 hours on the weekends? And I was like, I'm just going to be myself, which is nuts, by the way. And it kind of worked.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it worked. But I also do comedy shows probably once a year. My cousin is like a legit, like, LA-based comedian. And he'll come to town at the end of the year, and he does like a show at Victory Field, and I host it.
Oh, that's fun.
And you know, I work clean though. I'm too old to mix it up. Like, I'm a pretty clean comedian.
So, do you attribute some of your success in the financial advice industry to your to being able to have humor, to have that? I mean, do you attribute some of your success to that component of your life and your experiences?
Yeah, I think indirectly, of just allowing a person to take some time to be able to listen to you. I think, I speak a lot, and I was speaking even yesterday, and you got about 7 seconds for a person to decide whether they're going to lean forward for the next 60 minutes or to get on their phone.
Yeah.
And so that's a rule of comedy. And so I try to use that, whether it's my column or broadcasting or on a sales or partnership call for your money line. Now you get,
Yeah.
I'm not telling knock jokes, but you're just engaging and trying to be human.
I found a quote that I really like that the quote that I found that I think is your quote. I find great comfort in making people smile while addressing such a stressful topic, which is money, of course. So that's pretty cool. I mean, that you can get people to be a little bit lighthearted and not be so stressed when they're probably dealing with very stressful issues, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I grew up in such a comfortable household. Like I was born on third base, just was. And I denied that for a pretty long time. Like early in my career, I wanted to think like I did it. I didn't do much, man. I dotted an I and crossed a T. But I think what I realized in that is you go to help people, they just didn't have the same experience that I had. And so sometimes as we have the haves and have-nots financially, people keep score, but it's just, I don't want to get into fair and not fair. I'll just say it's just a lot different than a lot of people think. And what I love about that is just helping and enlighten a person that maybe didn't have the background that I had, and just really gratifying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talk a little bit about how Pete the Planner, your business side of giving financial advice, how that work has evolved over the last 20 years or so in terms of when you first started and kind of got into this sector and kind of where you are today. What have been the kind of the things that have changed, or that how you've approached money and advice has changed?
So 2005 was like the pivotal year for this. I was Pete the Planner, but what did that really mean, right? It was a blog and a bad logo at the time, and I had hair. And I got introduced to two partners who were married at different law firms downtown, and I was working through their situation. Their situation wasn't ideal, and I don't say that with shame or judgment. It just wasn't. Like a lot of people's aren't. And so I started working with them and started seeing some results by like working on behavior and non-investment stuff. And so then they passed me around to friends. Then they passed me. So then I became like this money whisperer for people who make a lot of money but are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Then Dave Lindsay from Defender Direct.
I know Dave.
Yeah. He and his crew came to me around 2009 and said, okay, we've heard about these parlor tricks you're doing with people who have money. Can you do this for my 2,000 employees who don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? And Nate, like every moron entrepreneur, I said, of course. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So, started doing that. And so from 2009 to 2015, while I was still running my investment business, I did 28,000 one-on-one appointments with defenders and various other clients we built. So I just had this pattern recognition of I can sit down with someone and probably a minute and a half tell you everything that has happened and everything that will happen. And it was like that sort of 10,000 hours feel to it.
Yeah.
And then what the business became is like, okay, cool, neat trick. How do you scale that?
Yeah.
How do you take that and turn it into something? Now, we collectively are in charge of 800,000 people's lives.
Wow.
Through that same idea of just pattern recognition and how can we get you to the next step in your life?
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't realize that you had worked with Defender Direct. That's kind of how it started when he came to you. That's a very cool story. So you're constantly being asked for, okay, here's my financial situation, react, tell me how I can improve, tell me what I should be doing. Talk a little bit about if they have the questions that people come to you with changed, evolved, like the problem solving piece of what you and your team does. Have the questions changed from 20 years ago? Are the problems always the same as they were 20 years ago, or based on the economic cycles we've been through and pandemic? I mean, have those types of things changed, or is it pretty much always the same? I mean, people don't change.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, how approach to money, if at all, has changed, and maybe even younger people's approach to money versus the older generations that you've worked with. You talk about the lawyers you mentioned. That maybe younger people are having a different approach. I'm just curious, like what you've seen.
I think the further we've gotten away from the Great Depression and children of the Great Depression, and as the generations have worked themselves out, as they tend to do, the less sensible people have become with money. I think baby boomers were certainly interesting because they had the earnestness and the lessons of their parents of what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then that also translated into, I want to give my kids the things that we didn't have, which then just set off the participation trophy generation, the next one down. Fortunately, I will say, this is anecdotal and observational at best, is that Gen Z is actually back on the right track. I think they're very ambitious. They show it in a different way. I think they're dealing with a completely different economy.
Mm-hmm.
Think about in the 1980s, the average home price was 3 times the national average of income, it was 3x. Today it's 7x.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's not nothing.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So I also think with hyper trading and cryptocurrency and meme stocks and all these different things, just the simple expectation of what a return should be on investment is wildly different.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're just battling human nature. Money is the intersection of math and behavior. Always has been, always will be. And so that will never change.
Yeah. You mentioned the Great Depression. I grew up with a grandfather who lived through the Great Depression and would constantly tell to me and tell stories about he saved all his money up every summer working on the farms, and then went to the bank, and there was a padlock on the bank, and he had everything he had worked for to go to college, money he had saved to go to college. He wanted to go to Purdue, and it was gone. And of course it affected the rest of his life, how he lived, how conservative he was. And he handed down those stories, which had an impact on me. And but just as you said, I mean, that generation has aged out clearly, but I wondered how much the stories still live on for some. I'm sure that's true, but further and further away. I
love people's stories. I had a fellow soccer parent come up to me yesterday at my son's practice, and she was born in Colombia, and from time to time she'll ask me stuff about money, and she just came out to me last night. She's like, "Hey, I paid off this medical debt," and gave me a big hug, and I was just like, that's all I need.
That's cool.
It's all I need. Fun stories like that have happened for sure over time. I was walking in my neighborhood once, and the FedEx guy just pulled up to me and said, "You don't know this, but you're my financial planner." And I was like, "Gosh, man, this is just it feels so good, right?" Because that's just what you want to do, is just get people to the next spot.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, more ahead with Peter Dunn, a.k.a. Pete the Planner, when we return to Off the Record podcast, presented by Prolific. Stay with us. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls, the message blends in, the site stops converting, the pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. Welcome back to Off the Record podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and today I'm talking with Peter Dunn, also known as Pete the Planner, one of the country's most recognized sources of personal financial advice. So, Pete, I want to jump right back in. You cover so many different types of financial questions in your work today: budgeting, investing, retirement planning. Your most recent podcast on the IBJ Podcast Network is titled "Why Smart People Do Dumb Things with Their Money." I love that title. When I saw it this week, I'm like, that's really good. So I know you are a big believer or work to understand and explain the psychology of money, and I think in that podcast, I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I will. But you talk about the psychology behind self-sabotage. Can you touch on a little bit about the psychology of money and what you're describing there? Why smart, really smart people And because we all know this. A lot of smart people, incredibly bright, but just don't make right money choices.
Yeah, to begin this conversation, we have to bifurcate it immediately. We have to talk about money and we have to talk about food choices in parallel, okay? You can't understand the psychology of money unless you do that. Because some people listening have no challenges with financial behavior, but they possibly have challenges with nutritional choices. They're the same thing. I know that a Baconator is a bad idea. I mean, there's no part of it that's a good idea. Yet, I have partaken in a Baconator.
Yeah.
Right? Financially, it's not a lot different there. And we also break it down. There's sort of 5 money vibes, as we call them at Your Money Line, or money personalities. There's 2 distinct ones, though. Let's take 2 people who are really stressed about their financial life. One of those people will find comfort by getting data about their financial life. Oh, looking at their checking account, looking at the transactions. Okay, everything, I can now see it. Whether it's good or bad, I can see it. The other one doesn't want to look.
Mm-mm.
They're covering their eyes. Go back to food. It's like when you don't want to step on the bathroom scale. I just don't want to know. I don't want to know. And I feel better by not stepping on the scale. That's the basics of money psychology. And it also has to do with how you grew up.
Yeah.
One of the interesting challenges in the Instagram era is that there are people that you cover every day in the IBJ that came from not a lot, and made a lot of themselves, created a lot of jobs for people. And it's not unusual or uncommon for those people to be so rightfully proud of what they've been able to overcome that they tie their self-worth to their net worth. And so then when they hit that natural roadblock that everyone ends up hitting at some point in time, it is psychologically crushing to them because they tied their success to overcoming something in their past. All this stuff might sound like gobbledygook, but I'll tell you, it makes a massive difference when you're sitting across from someone or sitting on a phone with someone or even emailing back and forth with someone and you take the time to understand where they came from. I think that's been a big part of the success of what we've built is like, I don't care what you have, honestly. I really don't care. Like, that's a weird thing. I don't care about anyone's net worth.
Yeah.
Barely mine. I really care about what the story is and what we're going to do going forward.
Yeah. It's interesting. So in popular culture, you always hear about athletes who have made millions and millions of dollars. And, of course, they're high profile and everybody thinks they're incredibly successful and often looked at as people young kids want to aspire to. But then you hear the rock bottom stories that some of them, a lot of them, I mean, the percentage of highly paid athletes that end up in bankruptcy, you always hear a terrible statistic there. And I'm just curious, like, have you worked with athletes in the past? And is there have you had some success or lessons learned that especially when it comes to like the high profile folks like that you could share?
Yeah, we'll talk athletes, but we can also talk about other high-profile people and how it's actually not that different. So I definitely worked with a lot of professional athletes when I was an investment advisor. It was a thing I got into, and it was really exciting to say I work with athletes. I was going to call them financial athletes, which is not what they were. But then if you take a beat, Nate, and you think about these 2 major elements, number one, from about 7th grade on, their focus was athletics. Not academics, not career, not internships. It was following a massive dream that very few people accomplish. So that focus element is immediately forgotten. Anytime a person vilifies an athlete who's gone broke. The second thing, at least for NFL players, is my guys would get paid 17 weeks in a row, their entire year's salary in 17 weeks. And then for 35 weeks, they'd get nothing. And I challenge anyone listening to this, watching this, to do the same thing. And it's wildly difficult. It is wildly difficult. And they're like, well, yeah, but they make so much money. It's like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. By the way, if you're making league minimum and your buddies aren't, and just to go to dinner with them, I think a lot of people in the real world have experienced going to dinner with your buddy you can't keep up with. Everyone's done that.
Yeah.
They do it every single day. So I think clearly, we haven't even mentioned the E word. I mean, this is really about empathy, right? This is about like not looking at the number of zeros. It's like looking at the person and saying, what can I learn from this? How can I serve this person? Like,
Yeah.
I'll say that, I was telling your coworker Leslie the other day, I've had Congress people call me and ask for financial guidance, and I've had federal judges call me and ask for guidance, and they're very powerful, influential people that are human beings, and in some cases are paycheck to paycheck, just like the people that they represent. And people hearing this shouldn't be a headline, shouldn't be a tweet, shouldn't be a short. It should just be, I understand.
Yeah. I think about all the, NIL in college athletics has blown up, of course. And you think about all these really young people who come into money very, very quickly. And a lot of these folks, some of them will go on to play professionally, the ones that are getting the really big dollars. But I'm hopeful, and you probably know, that all these kids are now, coming into this money so quickly that they're getting good advice and learning how to invest and all those things. You hear some positive stories out there, but that's a whole new dynamic, isn't it?
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary. I just think about the decisions that I was trying to make around 18 or 19.
Yeah.
They were reasonably good, but they weren't wholly good. When you have that much ammunition in the form of cash, that's a problem. So I don't know. I know the schools are doing the best they can. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
Are
they reaching out to your company?
I've had some conversations here and there, but again, it's, you talk about representation for a second. Not everyone wants to get financial advice from someone that looks like me, that's my age. Like, I don't necessarily resonate with the average D1 athlete at this point in my life. In my mind, I do, but I don't, and that's okay. And that's important.
Yeah.
TikTok has changed the game too with how people get financial advice. The influencer culture has changed a lot in my eyes in terms of ambition and how people think money gets made. I think I'm oversimplifying it, like I do literally everything I produce for IBJ. I'm oversimplifying to the point of if you can provide value to someone and you can be compensated for that, that's the way the world works. If you're putting something out into the ether that provides no value other than clicks, which you could argue is entertainment, I just don't see the value in it. It's sort of bothersome to me.
You sound really old school.
I'm old. And the weird thing is, it's like, I live in this world. I could monetize a lot more of the stuff. It just feels gross to me.
I'm teasing you.
But I am old.
I'm teasing. So let's talk about your money line and the company. So tell me, you maybe already touched on this a little bit, but how the company came about. That was with your first client, but it's grown a lot since then. And you've raised capital, as I mentioned in the intro. Tell me how that's going and how you're enjoying that venture.
Well, so before I took on capital, when I was still Pete the Planner, I gave myself the title of CEO of Pete the Planner. I think I had like 2 employees. So LinkedIn loved it, but I'm not sure I knew what it meant. You take on capital, you have dozens of employees and coworkers. You quickly learned that it is not a title. It is a lifestyle. And Nate, I was so bad at it. So bad. I've got really good at being Pete the Planner. I got really good at building a personal brand. But the last 4 years or so have been really hard, really gratifying, and the finest years of my career in the sense that it's not inward focused of how do we get more Pete the Planner out there. It's like, okay, look, why don't I use my problem solving skills to get stuff out of their way, give them resources. Here's the vision. Let's go. It's worked, right? But it is humbling.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I know that you are incredible at what you do because I've interacted with you a long time. I've followed you. I've read a lot of the stuff and I follow a lot of the rules that you outline or ideas that you provide. But running a company is a whole different ballgame, as you have found out, and I've learned over the years. And it's not easy, and it's often a little lonely when you're the CEO. And so I'm sure that it's been a wild experience in a good way, and stretched you in ways that you hadn't been stretched before. But I wanted to ask you about that because anytime you all of a sudden you have responsibility not just to your employees but investors, and that's a whole different world, isn't it?
Yeah, I think understanding stakeholders is a wildly important thing. I bought this book for myself on a vacation when I was trying to forget about running a company early into this process, and it just said it's called like CEO Excellence, and it was written by these McKinsey consultants. So I'm reading this book. I'm just devouring this book, Nate. And it's like there's 6 elements of being a CEO, and it goes through the stakeholders and all these sorts of things. So I'm just like every day I'm trying to operate on this like Fortune 500 level CEO stuff, and I'm unable to. I just don't have.
I wondered
the
at what
skills.
point you threw it out the window.
No, it's still behind my desk. It's a heck of a paperweight. But I'll just say like understanding stakeholders is so important, from clients to users to partners to coworkers to the board to investors. I've learned a lot, and I think the interesting part for me is, I don't know about you, but early in my career when I was had fewer people and kind of was doing maybe less significant things, you always hear about leadership and the importance of leadership, and I was like, well, I was the high school football captain. I think I know what leadership is. Thanks a lot, Tim. I'm not taking your course, and so I kind of looked past it. I literally had no idea how important leadership was and leadership training and making sure that your management team is in lockstep. And I had no idea. It's embarrassing. But to be fair, I'm also the person that went to Hanover and didn't know until my junior year that it was a liberal arts school. So sometimes I don't dig deep into the details. But yeah, that's been it. It's like finding amazing leaders and then trying to become a better leader.
How many employees do you have today?
Well, we've got just under 30 right now. Yeah, and we're down a little bit, right? I mean, 2025, early in the year, as people try to figure out what the economy's doing, you had to adjust.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
No, it's not.
No, you don't.
No.
Growing is fun.
Absolutely.
Nate. The opposite of growing, not fun. And, I think about everyone who's ever worked at your money line. In my most recent book, I literally just listed them in the back of just saying, thank you so much for what you're helping us do here. I'll tell you, I think about the people who don't work at our company probably more than I should have. Yeah. Because it's just, they're part of the story. They're not here now.
Yeah. One of the things that, so I was a practicing attorney representing companies, and I learned a lot by doing that. But one of the things I had always heard, it's a common phrase, you don't really truly understand until you're signing the paychecks, like you're actually running the company. It's a totally different thing being a CEO and owner of a company where the lives of your employees depend on you making good decisions, the right decisions, and that's a big responsibility. You don't really understand it and know it until you're actually there doing it, right? It's a very different feeling.
I come from a long line of male criers in my family. Grandpa Dunn would every family prayer at Christmas, he couldn't get "Dear Lord" out of his mouth before he started choking up. My father is a great emoter of tears. And it turns out anytime I start thinking about what you just said of like the family aspect and these people's kids and I can't hold it together. So that is the truth. And I don't know. That's how I feel. I'm sure there's owners and CEOs that maybe feel a little different, and that's great for them, I'm sure. But yeah, it's deeply personal. It's a lot.
So, you've got 30 employees, but as I mentioned in the intro, you're working on some AI that could be help leverage some of the incredible advice and ideas that you share with the people that are looking for advice from you all. Talk a little bit about what you see from your company perspective, how AI could be a game changer and be helpful.
So in the last 25 years and in 28,000 one-on-ones, here's the distilled reality. Most people put a black box around their finances that lasts 60 days. They don't really know what happened in the last 30. They're not taking the time to find out what's going to happen in the next 30. And so how can we use that to serve people? So what we've done using AI is people with their Your Money Line app, they have the option to connect all their different bank accounts. They can run their credit report on it. They can take their money personality assessment. They can put in financial goals. And then we use that data every week to create a story, reverse story problem about a person's financial life. And every Monday, they get a one-of-one podcast put in their app that tells them the story of their previous week and how it impacts their life.
Wow.
We're the only people doing it, and it takes the broadcasting element of what I've done, and it takes the financial side, and it basically says, hey, we're going to have a non-judgmental, one-sided financial conversation with you that you can't get mad at this voice because it's just what's happened, and we're going to talk to you in a kind way, and you can consume it whenever you want to consume it, how you want to consume it. And what we're finding is it's starting to open people up, that black box, so they actually know what's going on. So Nate, what it might say is, hey, Nate, you've had a pretty good start to October. You know, you're trending about 10% behind on spending from the previous month, which means you're doing a better job. So keep it going. If you're making to make progress on that goal of putting that new addition bathroom into your house, which is going to cost you $10,000, you've only saved $1,250 so far. If you keep this up, you're going to be able to put $600 more into it by the end of the month.
Yeah.
And it's that little nudge, that little Jiminy Cricket sitting on your shoulder. And so we're super excited about it, and it continues to grow. We're adding tax prep into our platform too this year, so people can actually just do their taxes in 8 minutes right there in the platform.
Neat.
And so then we'll be able to put their tax data into that. And we're going to have this scenario, Nate, in which a person can just take your money line with them their entire life. It will have a document vault. It will have these things where a person can just, at any stage of their life, it'll be there for you, and it will know you.
Wow.
And it will serve you.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great way to use AI. That's really neat. So Americans have this, in many cases, this fantasy of retirement. Like, I'm going to save this money and then I'm going to retire. And then I keep reading over and over again that Americans are not saving enough for retirement. And then you have this philosophy of, well, gosh, who knows how long I'm going to be around. I need to spend this money now and enjoy this money. There's a lot of kind of competing interests around the concept of retirement, but the failure to plan is always, one that I keep reading about, that we got a generation coming up that's going to have to keep on working and because they didn't plan. I'm just curious, like especially when you're giving advice to people with all those competing interests, how do you think about, retirement in terms of giving advice on that front?
Of everything that's evolved in the last 25 years for me, this has evolved the most. Let's bookend it with Grandpa Dunn retiring from Allison Transmission in 1983 after working there for 32 years. Okay. Went to his graduation into retirement party in 1983. There was chocolate cake. He passed away in 2014. So General Motors paid him for 63 years, and Grandma Dunn outlived him by 7. So the Dunns on 30th Street and Speedway got paid by General Motors for 70 years. Okay. That's one end of this. And in 1975, 88% of people had a pension.
Yeah.
Today it's 15% in the private sector. So what has been lost is certainty, right? Stability is one thing, certainty is another. And so that's at risk. Social Security is certainly a challenge. But here's where I'm at now. The goal for retirement for the average working person isn't to have a lot of money. That shouldn't be your goal. The goal is to not need a lot of money. And I know that's just like a quirky, turn of phrase, but it's a lot more than that. Two school teachers who are married can retire easier than partners at law firms every day in this country because they don't need a lot of money, right? And so my house being paid off, the fact that I don't gather obligations, I shed obligations, the fact that I don't want to have my dream house when I retire. I'm just in my house, I already paid it off. Like, it's the old millionaire next door sort of mentality of like, that's the hope. That's the hope. And the other side of this too is, and this is way out of my purview, but it's what currently interests me. If you don't got your health, you got nothing.
Yeah.
And I think people need to spend a lot more money and attention on their health in their 40s and 50s, because I don't want to work for 40 years and then just have my retirement just be non-mobile. So
right.
That's how I think of it now. I also think that the Midwest humility that comes with not needing a lot planned not needing a lot is healthy. It's interesting though. I don't necessarily buy the fact that AI is going to eat up a bunch of jobs for 55-year-olds, and that's a problem. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I do believe, and I did a series on this for USA Today years ago, of if you're broke and you're 50 years old, there's still absolute hope for you to have a successful retirement. But it's the intentionality of taking a 17-year run at it.
Yeah.
That's invigorating for some.
Yeah. I also read a quote, you just remind me of it, I think of yours, that the earliest money is the best money.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me, the reference to compounding interest, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of advice you give on that front. Get started early. The more you get started early, the more money you're going to have, right?
Yeah, I always like the one. My email inbox is always filled with some fun, right? Got one once. This guy's like, "Hey, I've been working 30 years, and I got 10 years left, and I literally only have half the money I'm going to need." And I read that email and I thought, he did it. He's done. Because that money's going to double in 10 years. Like he has half of what he needs. He wanted $1 million. He had $500,000. In 10 years, if invested appropriately, he'd accomplish it. And that's the nature of financial literacy. Of like the guy was, he was saying, "Look, I can't do it. I only got 10 years left. How am I going to save another $500,000?" I'm like, "Buddy, the trick, you did it." And I love stuff like that. I love the little turns of, someone who's in debt 5 years from when they want to retire, they're deep in debt. They're going to have a better retirement if they do it right than people who have no debt, because they're going to force themselves to lower their budget to pay off the debt for those 5 years. And that lower budget, that lower lifestyle, Nate, will be their retirement income. And so it's like there's hope in mathematics, which is not a T-shirt that anyone would buy.
Yeah. Could you have some conversations with our Congress about our national debt? Can you work on that a little bit for us? I'm afraid that's the thing that's going to.
They never asked me about that. They only asked me about their own personal debt. Oddly.
I know, right? I mean, maybe you need to do a little more on that front if you can.
Yeah.
So we're nearing the end. Maybe you referenced this a little bit already, but maybe not. I'm just curious. I always ask my Indiana 250 guests about mentors that have been really important to them in their lives, professional lives and personal lives. Any people that come to mind to you that have been significant for you?
Yeah, professionally, I look at the likes, a couple folks really. Charlie Morgan, who longtime executive at MS and at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network, was very influential to me. Always challenged me.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys, and people. I don't know if these stories still happen, but I know they did for years. Of calling a person or emailing them and say, "Hey, you don't know me, but can I take you to coffee?" and just pick their brain. And I was really into that early in my career, so. He said yes, and we started just chatting. Other one, in a way, Gary Dick has been really influential to me. I was on his show first in January of 2006 when I wrote my first book. Called him, and I was like, "Can I come talk to you?" And he just, for some reason, always humored me. He's a very kind man, this. I love running into him because it just reminds me of how much he had confidence in whatever I was doing. Of course, my dad too, right? My dad ran a family business and just a humble guy that when he retired from a plumbing business, went and worked for a suicide crisis prevention line for a decade.
Wow.
Then drove a school bus. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think wealth is interesting. You sell a business, you're going to have some things. And I think, my dream when this is all said and done is like, I think, I'm fine now. I think with the success of your money line, things will continue to get good. I want to spend an entire life helping people financially to gain a lot of resources by doing it, and I just want to give it all away.
Yeah,
it just is like a nice story to me.
Yeah,
of like use the back end of my career to give away what I was able to accumulate by helping other people with their money.
Yeah,
I don't know if it'll happen, but I want it to.
That's awesome. Well, we've got a incredible philanthropic part of America, of course, is, we have so many entrepreneurs that think that way, and it's really cool to hear you think that way too. Very, very cool.
Thanks.
Well, we've made it to the end of the official part, but we get to go to the speed round.
Oh yeah, I love the speed round.
Where I ask some fun questions to learn a little bit more about you. So, what's your all-time favorite movie, Pete?
Spies Like Us.
I love that. Doctor.
I mean, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase. My sophomore year at Hanover College, I don't believe I went to class. I think I just watched it on VHS tape over and over again.
It's one of my favorites. I love that. Favorite place to vacation?
New York City. I love it. 24,000 steps guaranteed. Great food, culture, humanity, good, bad. I feel amazing there.
Yeah, it's awesome city. Favorite musical artist?
Oh, geez. This is tough. I went to Pike High School in the mid-'90s, so I still listen to a tremendous amount of hip-hop to this day.
Yeah.
I'll just stump your entire listenership. I'll go with Talib Kweli. There you go.
All right.
Look at you Googling.
You stumped us.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you do in the morning?
I work out. I've taken to health here significantly recently. So I go and I work out for a couple hours.
You have a trainer, or do you just do stuff on your own?
Trainer Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on my own Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Nice.
Nate, I want so badly to enjoy the years I have with my wife when I'm not working. That's all I want, right? So I'm really taking it seriously. And it's fun. I'm metrics driven, I'm data driven. So the good thing about working out is you get a lot of data.
Yeah. Good for you. Title of the last book that you read, or one of your favorites, if you want to mention one.
It's a great question. A few. Favorite book ever is To Kill a Mockingbird. Easy. Like I still read it every couple of years. I like the character arc of the folks there. The Success Principles by Jack Canfield is just a really interesting book. It's like a self-help business book from the early 2000s.
Okay.
Very antiquated in terms of gender and those sorts of things. Just a fair warning to all our friends there. But it's got some interesting principles about personal responsibility and positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I read a lot. I read a lot of like spy thrillers that my wife likes to mock me for. But she always asks me how my mission's going, and I course have to tell her that it's classified. But it makes me feel I don't know, something.
That's cool. Best advice you ever received?
First boss, Steve Gould, may you rest in peace. 2000, right out of college. I was still a ball of energy then, or I guess I was a ball of energy then. Grabbed me 2 weeks into my job in my life, and he said, okay, you got something happening here. I'm not sure what this is. And he goes, but I get the hunch, you just got married. I get the hunch that you work here 40 hours a week. You go home, you hang out with your wife and your dog, and you watch TV all night. And you come back here and you do it again the next day. And I was like, yes, sir. That's what I do. Thinking that this is like what he wanted me to do. He's like, I need you to think about this a little differently. He's like, I think you need to fill your plate. You need to fill it with things you're doing in your community, with activities for yourself, with the work you're doing around here. He's like, fill your plate. I had no idea what he's talking about, Nate. It took me a little bit to figure it out. And I give that advice to our young people all the time that start. Yeah. Best advice I've ever received. I have very full plate all the time, and it's very fulfilling.
That's awesome. So maybe your answer to this last question will be similar, but I always ask advice for a young person, maybe a young Pete the Planner that wants to become a leader either in their field or in the community. What would be best advice you could offer?
Just figure out what effort means. I didn't figure out it all until I was 28, on the nose. I don't know why. It's just 28. And 22 through 26 were coasting the same way I'd coast in school. But figure out what effort looks like. My dad was an incredible role model of effort. And I didn't really follow through on it until a little bit later. So find your motor and go. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Pete, Really appreciate you joining me on the Indiana 250 podcast, and really appreciate you sharing Pete the Planner with IBJ Media and Inside Indiana Business. And I know our listeners have benefited from your advice over many years, and you've been a great partner. So thank you so much for all you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Nate.
Thanks, Pete. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.
Indiana's biggest names, their most personal stories. The Business and Beyond podcast brings you one-on-one conversations with the state's top leaders in business, sports, politics, and culture. If you want to know what makes Indiana tick, this is your show. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts or at ibjpodcasts.com.
Want to give your team a real edge? The IBJ Group Plan delivers unlimited access to every story, every report, every video from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business for your whole team. Cover some or all of your employees with one simple payment. The more you add, the more you save. It's smart, it's flexible, and it saves you up to 30% off the standard rate. Already have IBJ subscribers in your office? Group up and save big. Learn more and get started now at ibj.com/group-plan.